Celery juice. Have you seen? Have you heard? The celery juice trend was started by a man named Anthony William, or he also goes by the name medical medium. He claims it is the modern cure for disease. If you search the hashtag celery juice on Instagram, you will uncover 167,000 posts related to celery juice. People are claiming it cures everything from chronic disease to depression. Now, this is not your average celery juice video. If you're interested in the average celery juice video, I've linked a better than average one down below, where you can check out the type of content that is in 90% of these videos. Now, I have 5 key points I want to make, so let's jump in and talk about celery juice and the surrounding mystique that's sweeping the globe. Point number 1. I've been drinking celery juice for about 21 days now. I'm still going and I'm enjoying it. You could say I was the prime candidate to fall victim to the celery juice trend because I enjoy vegetable juices. I enjoy things that don't contain a lot of sugar, that are beverages. I was drinking these Suja green juices. I purchased these at Costco. They're basically all vegetables. They're not sweet. But if you're like me, this is a lot of single-use plastic to be creating every day. So I was looking for an option to try to get off them. So celery juice, I was kind of intrigued when this video by More Salt Please came up in my YouTube feed. I decided to click on it and watch it, and in the video she was making her celery juice with a blender rather than a juicer. I personally don't have a juicer. I've always wanted one. So I was like, oh, I could make it with a blender. Maybe I'll try it. So I generally always have celery on hand. I've always been a fan of it as a food for liver health. And so since I already had celery on hand, I started trying it. I started trying to make it in my blender. And I was having good success actually. And so I decided to order the book by the medical medium, Celery Juice. I purchased it for $11.99 on Amazon. It got here quickly, I jumped in, it's an easy read, and that leads us to point number 2. And that is the science behind the celery juice craze that is brought forth by Anthony Williams as a healing potion is simply not there. Okay? So first up, the medical medium himself is not a doctor. He does dispense a lot of medical advice, but as far as I could see, he hasn't done any medical training. He claims that he receives his wisdom and insights from the spirit of compassion, that his abilities and insights are all directly related between his communication with the spirit of compassion. So I started to read the book. It's an easy read, like I mentioned, and I get to chapter 2 where he's talking about the benefits of celery juice. And he goes into one of the key benefits being sodium cluster salts. Now, the first red flag to me was that he said the undiscovered subgroup of celery's sodium. So we're talking about one of the key benefits of celery juice's healing powers being undiscovered yet by science. Okay, then as I proceed through that chapter 2 on celery juice's benefits, you know, it's like that with all the key points. Plant hormones, plant enzymes, a special type of vitamin C, they're all yet to be undiscovered by science. So to be honest, I continued on in the book, but I was a little bit disappointed that here was something that's like a trend that's sweeping the globe, you could say, and nothing about it is really verifiable. So I want to point that out. If you see a blog post, watch a YouTube video, see him on a talk show, read about anything related to this book, it's basically based on his insights with no real medical backing. Now, if you follow my channel, you might think I'm going to end the video right there because, well, there's just nothing to back up these claims. However, this leads me to my next point, number 3. Something is happening though, right? The medical medium has 3.4 million likes on Facebook. He has 2 million followers on Instagram. He has 122,000 followers on Twitter. He's been interviewed by news channels, online publications. He has pages and pages of famous people backing up his book. He has thousands and thousands of people claiming that the advice that he has given them through his books is accurate. He has 5 New York Times bestsellers. So what's going on here? Because basically, he's saying that a spirit that's unseen gave him divine wisdom that's too complicated for science, and that now people are receiving healing. So that leads us to an important point here, is that you can't deny that people are receiving benefits from this trend. I mean, that's worth a little bit of our time, don't you think? All right, so that leads us pretty intuitively to what do we know about celery? Now, I went on to PubMed, I went on to Google Scholar, and if you try to research celery, there's a lot of options out there. However, I was not able to find anything that I could read more than an abstract on, aside from this thing I'm going to talk about, that I didn't have to pay for. And normally I can get access for about $7 for 48 hours. But the links that I was finding, they were quoting me $50, $30, and that was just too much for me for a YouTube video. But I did find this International Research Journal of Pharmacy that was investigating celery and other types of herbs as alternative medicine sources. And it said that celery is rich in beta-carotene, folic acid, vitamin C, magnesium, potassium, silica, sodium, chlorophyll, fiber. It contains 95% water. The major components are alkaloids, glycosides, terpenoids, flavonoids, tannin, polyphenols. The plant has antimicrobial, anti-cancer, and hepatoprotective activity. Okay, so why did I continue on with this celery juice trend, right? Why was I willing to try this when there was so little evidence? It's because there are a couple things that he says in his book that resonated with me. One of them being that a lot of our modern day illnesses are stemming from viruses. I have heard that mentioned before, and through the course of some of my medical training, I'm very intrigued by that point. And I also truly believe that our relationship to bacteria and viruses is largely undiscovered and unknown. So another thing that he touches on are science and medicine. And to be honest, I found some of his observations to be correct. And one of them being that science is changing all the time. That's 100% accurate. Science is the act of observation. It's the act of putting together and connecting dots. So yes, it is ever evolving. The other thing that I found to be correct was that modern medicine is, again, a little bit of a trial and error process, and that there are a lot of things that are unknown about the human body and about the disease process. So I was intrigued by his verbalizations of these points. And then kind of leading into his relationship with the spirit of compassion. To be honest, you would think that I would find that to be a little bit, or find him to be a little bit of a wackadoo. However, if you look or research any types of religions, there's, and I'm saying this as a Christian myself, there's a little bit of wackadoo there that you have to accept, a little bit of a faith component. So who am I to judge who is crazy and who is not crazy? And how do we, I think a lot of us acknowledge the idea of a spiritual realm. So, I mean, who are we to judge, right? Okay, point number 4. Now, I have to be honest, one of the reasons I was interested in the celery juice trend has to do with an episode of Hidden Brain that I heard on NPR that dealt with the idea of placebos. If you're not familiar, placebos essentially are a type of medicine that basically have no physical value. They instead have a psychological value for the patient. They're commonly used in scientific trials in which one person will receive a drug, which is an actual medicine designed to promote physical changes in the body, and the other person will receive a placebo, and the participants don't know what they're getting. Okay, so this man, Ted Kaptchuk of Harvard Medical School, decided to explore the idea of a patient having a very positive, caring relationship with a medical practitioner in which they were fully aware that they were being given a placebo, and he decided to check out the results. Well, people started reporting relief of things like chronic pain that they had had for many, many years, simply based on a very positive, caring relationship with their provider and the taking of a placebo. Is celery juice a placebo effect? I don't know. All right, the last point I want to make is celery juice right for you? Is celery juice right for me? So basically, I've been doing celery juice every day now in the morning, 16 ounces on an empty stomach for the most part. And one thing I've noticed is that I have an increased mental clarity after drinking it. Similar, if not better, than coffee. So much so that I prefer, or I go to celery juice automatically right away to try to wake me up, because it's very effective at doing that. The other thing that I've noticed is that I have energy, which is odd to me, and I can only credit it maybe to celery juice because I'm getting up in the middle of the night with a 2-month-old baby. I have 3 kids I'm chasing all day, and I've noticed that I feel like my mood is very stable and I'm energized. I don't know if that's solely from celery juice or if it's the combination of taking turmeric every day or trying to drink a lot of water or just my mental state in general of trying to focus on improved behavior patterns, or if it's all the oxytocin from breastfeeding. Tough to say, isn't it? I will say that the reason I want to continue on with celery juice is because I like the taste. And I find it to be a very refreshing, hydrating, encouraging, positive experience for me in the morning. Not because I feel like it's going to cure all these illnesses I have. The other thing that I want to say is part of the reason I wanted to try it was because I suffer from chronic sinusitis. And while I was pregnant with my 3rd child, it got really bad. And normally I would use a saline spray and xylitol, and that would solve the problem. However, during this pregnancy, like using a saline spray and xylitol was giving me nosebleeds, so I had to cut out using it. So by the time my son was born, my sinusitis was just like chronically bothering me. So I will say that it has improved. It's not completely gone, but it definitely has improved, so much so that I'm not noticing it every day like I was. Now, is celery juice right for you? Before you would ever start celery juice, I'm going to tell you right now, as a nurse, I would speak to your medical practitioner about it. Celery juice can have 2 effects. It can give you diarrhea, and it can also be a diuretic, meaning it pulls fluid out of your body. I would not recommend that you proceed having diarrhea frequently until your doctor is kind of aware of the effects of celery juice and it might have on you, and would okay you to be in that state. Simply because diarrhea can cause fluid and electrolyte imbalances, and those can be really problematic for certain types of health conditions. The other thing is that celery is a known allergen. There's a lot of studies on that, and it also can be photosensitizing. So like I said, before you would start this, please check in with your medical practitioner. I've linked a bunch of links below. Thanks for watching. Have you tried celery juice? And I'll see you next week. Bye.